park while they're at work, and we can encourage folks to use that resource. Um, so I guess that's the good news. Kind of from the business side, there's really no money in parking. It's really just kind of if we get back in, like, we would charge membership fees, and they haven't changed since the day we opened this place. The city's always been like, let's just keep it low, and as long as you guys are, so we kind of subsidized it a little bit, I would say, over the years, just from maintenance and upkeep of the building and the member area and all that stuff, and keeping it clean costs money. So the amount of membership revenue we would generate generally didn't cover the full cost of that service. So that's part of the business side. You look for cheaper vendors, or people that can do like cleaning the bathrooms and stuff, and providing towels and doing all that stuff at a lower rate, and try to get that as close to break even as possible. And then we make most of our money on, we're in downtown Santa Monica. I don't know if any of you have been here, but we're located about a block up from the Santa Monica Pier, right in downtown. And so before the pandemic, the city of LA was hitting about 50 million visitors a year, and Santa Monica was at about 8 million tourists a year. So tourism is a huge business, and that's kind of but then we have international tourism, and then we have domestic, regional, and then local kind of markets that we try to cater to. So given the location, our business plan was just to this is a good spot for rentals, despite the fact that there's probably I would say at least 8 rental operations on the beach, and people can drive right down the beach and park on the beach and rent a bike directly from there. But there wasn't anybody up in the city, up in town, so we were kind of the first ones doing that. Now there's at least 2 other rental operators near us in downtown. So we used to rent about 35,000 bikes a year. It's kind of a normal year. That started to go down year after year. One of the things, when you can see some of the slides I showed, 2014 was a year that impacted us because the city reconfigured the street that's right in front of us, and they literally tore the whole thing up, changed the flow pattern. They built a cycle track, which was nice, but it was a full year project. They literally jackhammered all the way up to our threshold. There was a giant hole, so everybody was redirected away from here. So despite that, we did pretty decent in 2014. They started that in April, which is the beginning of our season, and carried it all the way through summer and to about May of 2015. And so we survived that. And then about September is when the light rail finally came to Santa Monica after about 60 years of no train service to the west side. So that you can see kind of the trend in the membership numbers going down about those years. You can see them slowly decreasing year after year. So people started taking the train, didn't have to bike in, didn't need to park their bike all day and use that as much. So I think we lost people there. Breeze Bike Share launched November 2015. And so then that also put a ding on us, because that was the new kid in town. So everybody, and they could stage bikes right at the train station, and I did that, I guess. I did that to my own business. But and then in 2017 we had the scooter invasion, which also really took a hit. We were the first city to get dumped with bird scooters because they're phased. So so we had to kind of weather all those things. So we've tried to just adapt as much as possible. I mean, we went from probably 85% of our revenue coming from rentals to now it's down like 60%, 62%, I think it was. So we've focused more on trying to I mean, initially when we first launched the place, we kind of made a commitment to the city, like we're not going to just open up another bike shop and compete with the existing bike shops, because there's a whole bunch of them here, and we're like, we don't want to be seen as like some favoritism from the city because they picked us as a contractor. So we just stayed away from it. We said we'll just do rentals and carry some basic, accessories that a commuter would need: helmets, lights, locks, but not get too much into sales. So we've had to change that, and then we try to pick things that, again, aren't being offered in the local market. So we've kind of focused heavily on like family cargo is a huge, like a big category for us now. So we sell a lot of the downside of that is when those people want to park here, the facility wasn't built to accommodate those bikes. So you have to think about that. And there really wasn't anybody thinking about electric bikes either. And so I think in the back room where the members park, there's only 1 or 2 parking spots that would be accessible to like an outlet. Like there's no charging capacity. So think about things like that. Get overlooked a lot. You guys, I don't know, the planners seem to plan for the bikes and not the people. So they'll get a space, and they'll figure out exactly how many racks can they jam in the space, and then you're like, well, we got to move around in here, and especially if we get with your bike or with other stuff. So that's one of the things I think is, if we got 2 long tail cargo bikes parked across the aisle from each other, we're not really ADA compliant anymore, because you can't get through the, if you had to. So being a facility that's owned by the city, I think, that's something that we should potentially look at, or we got to create like parking areas for different types of bikes and try to get people to think about that. So, and then I think one of your questions about so we've tried to, we partner with a lot of people in the city. So the city is obviously a big, not only we pay them rent, so they get revenue from us, but then they tend to want to support some of the programs. And I don't know, I guess it's my nonprofit hat that comes on a lot, but we do like commuter loaner program is a good program. So we just made that up. After I went to Velo City and watched a presentation, they were doing a bike trailer loaner program in the Netherlands at like elementary schools and daycare centers and things like that. I said, well, we should just do commuter bikes instead of trailers. So we've done that. The city actually purchased the first fleet of bikes for that program for us. We just went and said, well, these are the bikes we think are good commuter bikes for people, and just all the gear that we'd want to give us a person that's new, so that they can try it out and see if it works for them. Seems like we get about 80 to 90% of the people then buy a bike after doing that. So that's a good hook. They don't have, it doesn't cost them anything. It's free, and unless of course they lose the equipment or it gets stolen, then they're on the hook for that stuff. And because of our emphasis recently, like in family cargo, and it's been, people at the city have been seeing more and more of those like front loading cargo bikes and running around, and people are taking their kids everywhere. So they just worked with us now. So we're launching a family cargo loaner program in January. So they bought 5 cargo bikes from us from the bike center, and then they contracted with Sustainable Streets to do all the programming. So the nonprofit is doing all the registration and getting people to marketing and things like that. That's kind of how we do it. That's kind of how I've been working this place, just kind of use both sides of the coin, and then use the public-private partnership to the max for whatever I can do. And then we can kind of get into other areas, like sort of part of the city family. So we can work with like Santa Monica Travel and Tourism is an important partner. You guys probably have Travel and Tourism in Coral Gables.
Right, yeah, TDC.
That would be, but they do things like for us. So they not only promote bicycling heavily across the world, but then they bring in, we do a lot of fam tours, I don't know, which are familiarization tours. So they bring in travel agents and reps from wherever, China, France, Germany, UK,
Oh,
wherever their reps are, and they come to Santa Monica and they schedule a whole, like, here's some hotels you should try, here's some restaurants you should try.
hmm.
We're gonna take you on a bike tour with the bike center, and then they know more about it, then they can go back and sell it in their market wherever
Mhm.
they're from. So we would do, that's kind of what helped us launch our tours. Really, we did a lot of fam tours in the beginning with the Santa Monica Travel and Tourism, and we even joined Discover LA, which is the Los Angeles kind of same thing, but we never really got anything traction with LA. I think it's just we're too small, they're too big. They have about a $60 million budget, and they're a nonprofit, so they're focused on conventions and big
Yeah.
ticket, big things versus like a little bike tour.
Heads
But
and
Santa
beds.
Monica is more intimate. You know, it's only 90,000 people here, so they want to promote Santa Monica as much as possible. So we do that.
And now, how is your facility? I mean, you have Santa Monica, and are you also involved with Culver City,
Well,
or is
Culver
that a
City
different
is a
vendor?
different contract. It's
Okay.
with Metro. So um, Santa Monica built this place, and the first one was in Long Beach, like 1996.
Right. I've
And
seen the Long Beach facility.
but that one I think is still subsidized. But like we were never taking any money from the city.
Yeah. No, that's the most amazing and very impressive thing about your operation. Yes. You're
They
definitely the exception.
and that's just business. You know, you're just running a business. You know,
Yeah.
it's nothing, and it's a great location, so it's not like we're geniuses or anything. But you know, we still have to deliver at the end of the day with customer service and products, and nobody else really has the type of bikes we have. Like, we're heavily focused on European brands like Gazelle and Brompton and Urban Arrow, and I got Babu, and I got Trio Bike. They're all from Europe. And then I use Giant because there's a Giant rep right here in Santa Monica that we've known for a long time, and so they can provide the support for kind of stock, like comfort bikes that we use for our rental, and city bikes we can get from them quickly. Well, we used to before the supply chain was torn
Mm-hmm.
apart. But yeah, so it's been interesting again as part of the thought of like, we don't need another Trek store in town. We don't need another, Bianchi. We don't need another Giant, because there's a specialized concept store. There's a Giant concept store. There's already a couple Trek dealers. So we just try to carve our own path and survive that way. And again, the rentals helped us a lot, like financially, able to do that. But I agree with somebody said something about infrastructure in your introduction, but I think we also ran Union Station, which was a metro contract at LA Union Station in downtown LA. They contracted with us. It lasted 18 months, and then we terminated the lease. We had a 5-year, I think I had a 5+5 contract, and we got out of there because it was just absolutely zero foot traffic, like no money, no nothing. It was costing us money to be there. So thankfully they let us out of that deal. But that kind of just speaks to, like, if you don't cite the location right, it doesn't matter how much, good intentions and great product and experience. I mean, if, you can't get customers to come there, then it's really hard. And Culver City kind of is that way. I look at where they cited it, and I understand why they cited it where they did. It's underneath the train platform, and it's near Venice Boulevard, which is one of the bigger boulevards that has a bike lane on it for over 20 years. So it's one of the more well-known corridors. But when I go there now and I see what they're doing on the other side of where the train platform kind of extends across twos from Venice Boulevard to Washington Boulevard, the other side has a whole bunch of other retail and like food and other things that people are that place is buzzing over there, and my side is dead. Like Culver
Yeah.
City, it's hard to drag people over there.
Okay. So
And they're,
so location is important, not just in sort of a market sense, but like a micro location, like literally what side of the street you're on.
yeah, I think so. And if there's good bike infrastructure around you, like so that people, I mean, that's our customers, like people, even if they're not, even if they're tourists, you know, they come here and like, oh, it says we should go for a bike ride and we have this beautiful beach path and like, let's go do it. But if it looks dangerous, like leaving our corner,
Right.
you know, it's really hard to sell them on that. So um, the city has helped a lot with that. You know, again, when they redid the street in 2014, 15, it was I think it was 2 lanes in each direction, 4-lane road. They turned it into 2 lanes. It's a one-way, and then a bi-directional cycle track. That's a class 4. So it's got a concrete buffer on it. So it feels safe to people. So
What
they
else
feel,
is in your block? I mean, your the two sides of your facilities are parking garages.
yeah.
And is the whole, is there other retail?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So basically, this is a super block. That's the mall. It's a mall.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the Santa Monica Place Mall, and we're the only occupant that's not a tenant of the mall.
Okay.
So we're a tenant of the city. So yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. It's 3 levels, you know, outdoor mall, typical kind of, and then it kind of connects to the 3rd Street Promenade on the other side. And then they just converted an old Sears building across the street from us, and they're going to make that into like, I don't know, like here in downtown LA, they have a thing called Central Market. So it's a place where you can go and they have you can get if you're a food chef, you can check out a stall and you can make, you know, set you up a little tiny restaurant type thing. And they're going to do like multi-use stuff over there. So that was going to draw people from 3rd Street through the mall and then into the next building and then down our street probably, because then they go towards the pier. So it's a lot about the attractions, like what do you got? And like, I think that's super important, where again, going back to Union Station, that there's just nothing. They put us in the back, hidden, like people couldn't find it. And that was the other thing, there's no wayfinding. Like I literally, they did a press release and then you'd be there and people would be like, I've been trying for an hour and a half trying to find this place. And there's they still had signs up that pointed them in the other direction. Like if you got off the train at Union Station, they actually pointed you east when the facility was west. And you're like, can you guys fix that? So that's why we use that to get out of our contract. Like you guys aren't supporting this at all. You're basically, it's like a treasure hunt and you're asking me to do a huge marketing campaign to help people find the facility that you built. And then they built it as a modular structure so that it could be moved. And I said, let's move it. I found a better spot and they wouldn't do it. So that was the end of that deal. And the other thing that if you're looking, like one of the things, even here in Santa Monica, they built this facility. It's considered an exterior building. So we actually, which sucks, but because the ventilation, like they ventilate the car fumes and brake dust through us. Like we have to be an outdoor space. So there's like actual wire mesh kind of screen between our facility and the part where the cars park. Okay. And so the problem with that is not only air quality and exposure by our employees, but it's just dirt. It's like,
yeah, I would imagine
it's so hard to keep things clean.
Gritty.
So we started building walls here, and even though building and safety at the city, sometimes it's like you just do it because you're tired of asking, and they don't seem to get it. So we just started during the pandemic. We took the opportunity to build some walls and keep it cleaner, keep the dirt out. Because the one in Union Station was all wire mesh. The entire building was just like the wind would blow through it, and it would get dirty in like day. Like you could wipe the counter off, and a couple hours later it would have just black soot all over it. So Culver City, they built that one as a enclosed, you know, glass and steel and like regular walls type of facility, and it's just remarkable how much cleaner it is. So that's the way I would go.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, from what I in our situation, I don't know how much I explained to you, but there's a creating the space was a development condition for a large multi-use project that's happening in downtown Coral Gables. And so no agreements have been signed. I mean, it's sort of understood that we would be the tenant, but I don't know what those conditions are going to be. You know, if it's going to be market rate, if it's going to be, you know,
Well,
how close to zero are we going to be able to get them?
yeah.
But it sounds like because there's one of the big differences between us and you is, you know, I think we're not going to be under any conditions of an RFP, for example, or of, you know, metro funding or whatever. So I think we have the flexibility to look a little more broadly at our market analysis and decide what's really going to work in this space, because it's a very different context. I mean, I mean, Miami is a huge tourist city, and Coral Gables is a significant tourist location, but we're not on the beach. We're not on a significant, you know, greenway trail or anything like that. It's not that kind of tourism. But we do have a lot of experience and have had a lot of success with tour programs. So I have a feeling that might be, and so are those, I mean, I would imagine those run on demand 7 days a week.
Yeah, I mean the tours that was one of the things that was starting to grow for us when the pandemic killed it. We got to start over, but yeah, we would do, and a lot of it for us was Viator, Expedia, you know, and things like TripAdvisor. We contract with resellers all over the place, all over the world. And so we give them a commission of our tour. So they get a cut when they sell it. And probably the main ones that helped us a lot, most consistently, were Viator and Expedia. And then Get Your Guide is a German company, I think, but now they're starting to come at us again. They didn't do much for us, but they're starting to try to try to build up an American kind of presence and be a little bit more proactive. But yeah, so basically those, we do annual contracts, and we give them so if we have and we'll do a commission rate, we can tier it. Like if you're doing a lot of sales for us, then you get a little more commission than you do. If you're basically just giving us a couple tours a month or a year, then you're not gonna. But we had Japanese companies, Australia, all over the place. So we never really got anybody that walked up off the street that wanted to take a tour. It was all.
Oh, really? Oh, it's organized. Okay.
It was booked. Yeah, all that stuff was. If they wanted to go and we had a tour going, we could certainly do that. Yeah. And we would book them, but we never really got that kind of request.
Okay.
So it was all pre-booked online. And then, you know, having a lot of events in LA helps. Like the Rose Bowl was always like, we would do tours constantly during when those games were going on, or anything like that could draw. And then we had a lot of large group rentals. So we had a fleet of 50 bikes that we just dedicated for large groups. So we would get everything from like school groups from the Netherlands to some team from Arkansas that was volleyball team that was here to play UCLA. And they had a day to kill and they wanted to go for a bike ride. And they would just come in like group of like 30, 40, 50 people, and we would just boom, 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 here you go. And they would just prepay it. So we ran that. That's what we ran over at the other corner at 4th and Broadway, because that really was just a kind of a membership area. It really wasn't used. There's no showers over there, so it really wasn't used as much as the one on 2nd in Colorado, because this one had showers on this side. So a lot of our members, and it's way busier on this 2nd in Colorado corner, so it's perfect to launch tours from a little quieter location, and we could get those large groups and not, you know, interrupt the regular flow of people that were passing through there too much. Our group thing that was going on. So that's another thing, like, yeah, it'd be great if we had more space, we could stage things better and really, do it. But we've kind of just figured it out,
And so and I guess in my head I was sort of conflating. So I guess, so the tours, of course, rely on the rentals because people aren't showing up with their own bikes for a tour.
Yeah, that's why we had our own fleet. Like we had
Right,
a fleet of bikes.
But the tour, but you're renting. I mean, you're renting a lot more bikes above and beyond anybody that's taking a tour from you.
Yes. Yeah, the rentals were all happening at the other corner, so we kept them separate, just because it gets too crazy, when you're trying to give people a little pre-tour kind of, like, here's what we're doing and whatever, and then this corner we're on, it's insane, like on a weekend when things are popping. I mean, there's thousands of people.
That's the more open. I mean, I look at the reviews. That's the open one that's facing the greenway or the cycle track.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that seemed like a lot more active space.
Yeah. So and that's partly because this side we have staff, the other side we don't. We just store things there. And then if we have a group coming, we go over there and get them out the door and then meet them when they come back.
And that other one is the sort of the commuter membership shower entrance?
Well, no, that one didn't have any showers. Both sides have a membership entrance. So just the backstory on that was the city's original proposal had the bike center sited somewhere else, like on Wilshire Boulevard in another part of the city. And then when Metro finally identified the terminus for the light rail, which is just down the street from us now, they amended their proposal and said, we don't want to build it on Wilshire, we want to build it near the train. So so then the space got split up into two components, two pieces rather than one big piece. That's why there's two corners of it, but it's still considered under. Yeah, it's weird. We got to run over to, like, it's almost 2 blocks for us to get over there. And then, but it's all part of the same place, technically.
Okay.
Even though it's 2 different addresses, really. But going back to your thing, like, you say I would push whoever wants you to run this thing for free rent, because I get free rent in Culver City. I told, after Union Station, I said, I'm not paying you guys rent anymore. If you want me to operate this facility for you, we're happy to do it, but we're not paying you any rent, because we're providing a valuable service to your building that you just invested all this money in, and you need to get the commuters coming. And that place was actually doing pretty good before the pandemic. I mean, it only had 64 parking spaces in it, but the people that parked there were actual bike commuters and going to work. For Santa Monica, we get a lot of people that want to take a shower, or they want to use a locker, and they might have a bike, but they're not really going anywhere with it. They're just kind of rolling around. Right. And they really want to shower. So that's the biggest problem that we face. Okay. Is we're not really equipped. We're bike people. We're not social workers and homeless. Even though we feel for them and we work on their bikes and help them out and do all that, but when they get in as a member, then I mean, literally, they have people staying overnight, locking themselves in one of the restrooms or the showers. So Metro has a thing now where they built bathrooms in the Culver City one, but I think they said that's the last time they're going to put bathrooms in one of these. So they're not even going to spec them with bathrooms anymore. Wow. It's just going to be a parking room. And I haven't seen any problems too much in Culver City, but when I was downtown Union Station, it's like a magnet, people want it, and it's not a public restroom, sorry, and so you have to kind of go through that all the time. So that's probably the biggest thing that we deal with, I think, is the hardest challenge, is just how do you accommodate them, but then at the same time, if you got the place full of homeless people, then the regular commuters don't want anything to do with you.
Oh, sure.
They're afraid, they're like, I don't want to go in there. or you
Right.
don't know if it's clean or not, and you're like, okay, I get it. And then they
Um,
start storing things. You had people bring in appliances in with them, like refrigerators and microwaves. You're like, you can't do that.
oh, I used to manage the Dade County bike locker program. I know all about the kind of stuff that people think they need to store. Um, yeah, there were some crazy incidents, and I had an employee that was very pro homeless, and so it was a challenge to get him on the same page with sort of doing a quick evaluation of someone's potential as a bike rider.
Yeah.
Um, can you talk a little bit about your education program? Of course, I'm sure that's not a moneymaker. That's a social, conscience.
Yeah. We do okay. Um, we never really got a lot of traction with our roadside repair class, like for people to come here. So we kind of offer just 2 classes right now, that basic roadside repair, but we mostly do that when we'll go to a corporate client or somebody. We'll go and do a lunch and learn or do something, or bring your bikes, and our mechanic will go over there and he'll do a hour, whatever time frame they got. Rather than we've tried years do structured like classes for that, but it's just hard to get people to show up, and we don't really have a huge space for that anyway. But our main class is the adult learn to ride. So, and again, that's channeled off to sustainable streets. So that, and for many years, not this year, but many years, then the bike center would pay sustainable streets a small fee to run those classes.
Okay.
So it's not so bad. I mean, we do 2 Sundays a month, and on that one, and do 2 back-to-back sessions. So we do 4 classes a month, and we limit them to 8 people in a class. And it's kind of actually a good way, because you get people that have been trying, there's so many people that don't know how to ride a bike, adults that, they get passed over. And, but it allows you to, bring them along at a pace, and introduce them to a bike shop, like, because they don't even know how to walk. They're afraid to walk
Right.
into a bike shop. What do I do? How do I interact with these people? I don't know anything about it. I don't want to look stupid. So even getting them to come to a group class, learn to ride, is, so for some people it's hard, because they think they're the only ones. And we're like, no, we have full classes. So we'll do 16 students every other Sunday. And then we have people on a wait list, and the classes are always full.
Oh, good. Okay.
So but that was one of the other things I did here was we built a bike campus. So I got the city so we have a dedicated space down at the beach where we painted all the diagrams and different.
Oh, right. The skill drills.
Yeah. So it's just permanent paint. We call it the Santa Monica Bike Campus.
Oh,
And,
cool.
so I helped do that, because I was like, we should have one. There's no reason why we should. Oh, well, I was teaching classes, and it takes you a while to set up tennis balls or markers. And
Right.
then, and I said, if they just would paint this, I wouldn't have to do all this extra work, and I could just teach the class. So that took 4 years for me to get the city to do that. But now it's great. It's like you can go down and you have a spot, and you can teach classes. So.
Oh, that's very cool. Now, is that your own curriculum, or did you, is it adapted from?
Well, we do. I'm a coach for the league, so
okay.
I do train the trainer programs for them. So I've been in LCI since 2007,
Okay.
and then I became a coach in 2013. So we participate in all that stuff too. We're a platinum bicycle friendly business.
Right.
Cool. We actually help the city. They actually hire us, and we help them with whenever they have to do their renewal for their bicycle friendly community. So they paid Sustainable Streets to do that.
Yeah, I saw that on your website.
Partner network, they want to promote cycling, and it's like, okay, they built a center, so there's that, but but then Sustainable Streets has got a little niche in there, and so they can turn to Sustainable Streets and go, hey, can you guys take care of, like we did, I had a contract for 55,000 that got killed because of the pandemic to do the bicycle friendly driver program. So we had a whole, because the league just adopted that from the city of Fort Collins in 2018, and it took me 2 years to get a contract, and then it got mothballed for now. But yeah, we were working, we had conversations with the Big Blue Bus, which is the bus company that the city owns, all their public works. So we had we're going to do the bike friendly driver program and just talk to them about, you're driving this big vehicle, and when you guys run over stuff, it usually isn't good, for the bicyclists and pedestrians. So they were really excited about it. Actually, the bus, we had a whole plan together, but then we have to pick it up next year, I think, see where that goes.
Okay.
So that's, I just look at any opportunity. What can we do? And it's not for free. We get it funded, as much as we can.
And how big is your staff? Can you talk a little bit about the staffing for the different components?
The bike center, we have 3 people besides me right now. We had 24 before. I had about I think 8 tour guides and a tour coordinator. So the tour department was pretty good. And we had a lot of I need 6 people on a weekend just to do rentals, because it was just so busy all day long. And that was one of the things that the city did to us in the beginning. We slowly changed a bit. In the very beginning, we were open from 6:30 a.m. until midnight, a couple days a week, and then the rest of the week it was like 6:30 a.m. till 10 p.m. was considered an early day. But because they had somebody at the city had some idea that, people might want to go down and have dinner and go to a movie, and they wanted us to do bike valet, for free, basically. I'm like, after we did that for a year, and I was like, this isn't happening for us. This is costing way too much money in labor costs. The payroll was ridiculous. So we got that amended in our contract to run reduced hours. But yeah, normally I think we would probably have. I had 3 mechanics. I'm down to 1. And have like the tour department would be 8 to 10 people, and then customer service and rentals and things like that would make up the rest of it. And on the nonprofit side, it's really just kind of a handful of instructors that we can call on. There's like 3 or 4 that teach all the time for us. So they're local. That's easy. They like it. It's the most fun class. I mean, when you teach an adult that's like 35, 40 years old to ride a bike, and they've never been able to accomplish it, and then about 20, 30 minutes later, they're pedaling, and it's very exciting for them. So you start getting feels pretty good. So it's easy to get instructors, but we just pull from the locals, and then the rest of it is all volunteer. We have volunteer board on that side. I volunteer my time as executive director. So, because I'm busy here, and it's not something I need to get paid for, really.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, that's really awesome. I want to respect your time, but I want to give everybody a chance in case they have questions about things that we haven't covered already. So I guess I'll go alphabetically again. Andrea, I can see. Do you have anything?
I'm just astounded at how cooperative the city seems to be. Hey, let's build this facility. Hey, can you do this for us? I'm new again to this board, but I haven't seen anything like that here. Did you have a relationship back at the beginning with staff? I mean, what? Yeah.
I mean, I did because I was teaching classes, became an LCI, like I said, in 2007. So I just started teaching classes in Santa Monica, and around the West Side. I contracted with Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, other cities in the area. So I kind of actually, what started it for me, I think, is the city put in their application for bike friendly community. And then because I was, one of the locals, the league kicked it down for local review. And so I got a copy of it. So I was reading it. And then they listed me as an instructor because one of the questions is, do you have an LCI teaching in your community? So then I said, hey, you guys never even asked me about that, but that's okay. So we can learn to get along. Like, you're going to have to help me out down the road. So we just started working together. And I think it's turned into one of the things the city did early on too, was people in the mobility division sometimes they have a hard time getting other departments to cooperate for infrastructure, for whatever. And so we sat down and they paid to have two competency, back then it was a road one, I think the league called it, but basically they're 6 to 9 hour course that people would take. And so the city bought two of those from me. And then we sat down and we did a strategic invitation list, like who is a problem and who needs to like get on board with this stuff. And so we invited them and we did it during a work day. They came down, they got paid to be at work. This is just like an education program for them. Mm. And so I still run into people to this day that took those classes and go, you're the one that got me to ride a bike to work, and then the city they would tell me like, hey, we've been trying to get this project done, and guess what? We got an email from somebody that took the class that was riding a bike down the street that sucks, and they thought it could be done better, and they're like, yeah, we've been waiting, for you guys to come around. So it was kind of a weird, things like that we try to use education as an advocacy tool. But make it fun, make people want to see the benefit of doing it. And so I don't know, I think that's the city has always been kind of open-minded. They have a pretty bike friendly kind of staff for the most part. And then we did another thing, I think after we opened this place, early on when the league was doing the National Bike Challenge over the 5 months, I called up one of my reporter friends and I said, hey, let's do a press release, and we're gonna say the bike centers are gonna kick the city's ass, even though we only have at the time 10 employees and they've got almost 2,000. We're gonna beat them in this challenge. And so he wrote that up, and then I got a call from City Hall going, you probably shouldn't do that. So then the city manager's one of his assistants came over and we crafted an email that the city manager put out, inviting all the city staff people to join the National Bike Challenge. And the city, I think, got 3rd in the nation that year. They did really well, and we had happy hours. We organized happy hours, and I would write talking points for the city manager. I'm like, dude, you got to come to these happy hours and tell everybody how great we're doing, keep the momentum going for 5 months. So he would show up and he would do his part, and he rode a bike. And so stuff like that. I think that's how I would try to engage the city as we're in this together. I've done things with the Chamber of Commerce. Like the Chamber does a program where they do the Sustainable Quality Awards and they always offered free bike valet. And if you rode your bike, you got the valet, and you got a raffle ticket for something. And I was the only person that ever rode a bike to the event. And we're a member of the chamber. So I went to the meeting one time and said, so what is it, how many people show up at this event? And the city has a goal of getting to, 14% of all trips by bike by 2030. I think that was their baseline goal. They really want to get to 35% if possible. And so we have an obligation as business people in the chamber and whatever in this community to do our part to help city achieve their goals. And so you can leverage the chamber to get on board. And I said, well, how many people show up for this event? It was 200 or 250. And I said, well, I'll pay for the registration for the 14% of that. So it was $50 a ticket. I had to rent on $1,500, $1,600. And they're like, no one will come on a bike. And so we paid for the first, it was like, I only needed to get 35 people to ride a bike, I think is what it amounted to. And we had like 50 some people showed up on a bike that time. So, it's just like, how do we engage people? Like, these are goals that are stated in some plan, like, let's use them, and like, not so they just don't wither on the shelf.
Ron, what's your background? I mean, before.
I don't know. Well, I worked in photo finishing for almost 20 years. And then I went to Sweden. I got a master's in sustainability went to Sweden, came back, worked for Greenpeace for a while, and then got into this place.
Thanks.
So,
very cool. Very interesting.
yeah, I think it's just, you got to look at different ways of looking at things, and how can you, like, there's always an opportunity in these things.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's going to be one of our challenges, is to figure out, what can work and what's not going to work. I don't want to bang my head against a closed door.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't, it's sometimes it just, like for us, it just like happens, and we just go for it and say, let's just do this. It costs us money to do the chamber thing, but people still remember it. And my whole goal with that was to convince the chamber that they should do that for every single event that they do. And they could use that as a sponsorship package that they sell to some big company that wants to, they sponsor all kinds of stuff. Why can't you sponsor this? And so, and then we did it for 2 years, and then Bike Share came, and I said, I'm done. I go, you guys put in all these bikes all over the city, but so they can just take the Bike Share. You can give them a free bike for that. But
Kurt, do you have any questions for Ron?
I'm just taking it all in. I mean, you think, what advice would you give to us, given, I think David has already given you an idea of the opportunity open to us. What advice would you give to us, seeing that we're, starting small and, in the formative stages of anything?
Well, like I said, I think, I would push as much as you can for free rent, obviously, because that's definitely a cost center that can get out of hand if, you might be dealing with a property developer. At least you have a real estate guy on your team. So, you can, they have a different sense of the value of the space than, like bike business isn't lucrative necessarily. And then I think you should just do what you're good at. If you're good at tours, start there, and then you can, look for opportunities and work with, like I said, I sometimes the city comes to me with a lot of stuff, but I go to them with a lot of stuff too. Like, I don't sit around and wait for things. We used to do a lot of press releases. And then sometimes, and one of them landed in the LA Times. I had Wall Street Journal did a story on us on our bike education program. So like things like that can just, like, whatever happens because you're pushing it out there, and then it's slow news day, and like, oh, this is interesting. What's up with this? But we did with the Wall Street Journal one. They approached me. I can't remember why, but and then I coincidentally had we were working with the business here in town with their bike friendly business application. So that's another thing we did too. We just kind of went out and offered free, like, we'll help you get started on the application. And then, if you think that you want to hire us to help you get through it, then we can do that. But that company they had a little fleet of bikes, and they had odometers on them, and they had a program where when the employees took the bikes out and rode them during the workday, they would, however many, the miles would count towards like $1 into some pot. And then they would take the money that the employees earned through their miles, and they'd buy like kids' bikes and donate them to some needy thing where the kids needed them. And so, and through that program, they found there was like 4 employees that really wanted to participate, but they didn't know how to ride a bike. So that's how, and so then I'm like, oh, well, And so then when the Wall Street Journal said, well, coincidentally, I'm teaching these 4 people like tomorrow how to ride a bike, and you can come down and do your story. And there's this other story that you can probably tell about too if you want to. But they learned how to ride so they could participate, so they could earn miles for a kid's bike. So interesting little connections, I guess.
Yeah, that's neat. All right, cool. Looks like we lost Nicholas. He might have gotten into St. Augustine. All right, well, Ron, I mean, this has been incredibly useful and informative for us. Again, I appreciate your cooperation with this, and you know, all the different aspects of it are just so impressive. Thank you so much, and you know,
We're making a
I
tour.
can't say that we're going to use you as a role model. I think we'll probably try to steal some of your ideas, but I mean, just context wise, and the, you know, the cities, you know, as the driving factor and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's eye-opening for sure.
It's noticeable because I live in Beverly Hills, or I did until I just moved. But I barely worked in Beverly, my own city that I lived in, because it's, you know, it's just too hard to kick the door down, you know. And so even here, it's like, you know, Santa Monica is a well-to-do community. And some other parts of LA could use support. But LA County is such a big place. So that's one of the other things, like on the education front. I can't be everywhere, so we trained a lot of groups in different parts of the city. Like, come over here, spend a couple times, come a couple times. You know, we'll go through and teach you how to get your program running. We'll help you get instructors certified. We'll get you all that, like, get it moving for you. And then I don't want to go out to El Monte, or I don't want to go down South LA. I don't have time. And they know their own neighborhood better than I do, and they know the challenges that people face. So it's kind of like, just like, let it go. You know, it's not important to do it all. But I came to Santa Monica because it was easy. Like, they were open.
Right.
Open
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. If the door's open, as opposed to having to.
We don't even deal with, like, our programs. We don't even deal with any of the kids, like safe routes to school or any of the kids stuff. We just let other groups that are good at that, like. So there's a lot of referrals, like they refer adults to us and we refer parents and kids to them. And, you know, so that's part of, like, sticking with, like, yeah, I could do all that. I could teach kids, but it's not, I don't have the time for it. And it's not, like, my passion. So, so we just, and there's a huge need, like the adults slip through the cracks, and we get, I mean, maybe they grew up in a place in a country where women weren't allowed to ride bike because they were female. So we get a ton of, like, you know, that kind of audience from Iran or from places like that have migrated here, and their brother was allowed to ride a bike, but they weren't. And now they're in their 30s and they're like, this looks like something I should be doing, you know. So you get that kind of stuff.
And so the Learn to Bike, the adult Learn to Bike program really is Learn to Bike. It's not like the old Road One, you know, here are some.
They've never learned how to ride.
Saddle down, you know, saddle down, pushing.
Pedals off, scooting like a toddler.
Yeah. Learn your balance, right? Okay.
Yeah. So balance, pedal, steer, and then we can move them on. And we have an intermediate class. We don't teach all that often, but it's nice because then through the, you know, typically we can bring them to the bike center and sell them a bike, get them started with something. We can sell them a used bike so they're not financially strapped right out of the gate, you know. So it's like kind of breaking down all the barriers. It's really
right.
Make it simple for them, and, you know, give them, because otherwise they go in and they buy something either at Walmart and it's going to fall apart or need lots of maintenance, or they buy a bike that doesn't fit them right, you know. So we try to, like, just let us help you.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that helps the business too, so it comes back and we sell stuff, you know?
Right. I mean, and some of this stuff, yeah, I mean, definitely the education and right, building the advocacy community and all of that, you know, over a life cycle will come back and hopefully lift all boats, but yours included.
Yeah, and people come from 2-3 hours away. Like, there's nobody teaching these classes. They come from long. Sometimes, yeah, we get people that come from long ways away because there's nobody teaching in their area. So
I mean,
That's
I,
why
always- I haven't taught in the last couple of years. I'm an LCI also, and used to do, you know, sort of like 3 or 4 classes a year, and I never had any trouble filling them up. I mean, there was definitely, it was clear there was demand for it.
Yeah.
And even just through, you know, word of mouth or whatever. And I think that's probably still true, or it will be after pandemic time.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, have a great rest of your afternoon.
All right.
And
Nice talking to you all.
thank you so much for everything again.
Yeah.
All right. Good to meet you.
Take care.